This Week with Bob Mueller on News 2.
This week,
I've walked around all day in like a gut punch.
leaked pages from the Covenant shooters' so-called manifesto angers Covenant parents who want the documents kept sealed. More in our This Week cover story.
It's still a very fresh trauma for this city.
Who leaked the documents is under investigation by Metro government. You will hear from Mayor O'Connell.
We want to be able to look at the entire picture before we start trying to craft legislation.
And there were also renewed calls from state lawmakers to release all of the documents.
We can support our public schools all we want, but don't lock a child into a failing public school.
Republican lawmakers want to expand a school voucher system to all 95 counties.
Fiscally irresponsible. It's policy malpractice, basically.
And Republican lawmakers are examining the feasibility of rejecting nearly $2 billion in federal education money. Hello again, and welcome to another edition of This Week. Anger, outrage, and investigations after pages of the Covenant school shooters' so-called manifesto are leaked to a conservative radio host. More in our This Week cover story. A committee is examining if the state can become the first in the nation to say no to billions in federal education dollars. But we begin with an attempt to expand school voucher programs to include all 95 Tennessee counties.
Voucher programs could soon be coming to a school near you.
We can support our public schools all we want, but don't lock a child into a failing public school.
A voucher program is where tax money is used to cover the tuition of a student going to a private school. In news first reported by the Tennessean, House Education Committee Chairman Mark White says he's planning on bringing a bill to expand that program to every county. It's a concept Republicans say helps out those who are underprivileged.
Money is required, but it's not about propping up any system. It's about what is best for the individual child. Education is about educating each student, not about private, public, charter, homeschooling. It's about educating the student.
But Democrats say it diverts money away from public schools.
Everything that the Lee administration and this GOP supermajority has done, education related, has been designed to steer taxpayers' money into private hands.
The potential change is a massive expansion to Tennessee's voucher program, which currently only exists in Davidson, Shelby, and Hamilton counties. And House Democratic Caucus Chairman John Ray Clemens argues it's just the latest in a string of decisions meant to weaken confidence in public schools, pointing to the latest move by state leadership to explore the idea of rejecting federal education funding.
This GOP supermajority is underfunding it by billions. Now they want to blow a $2 billion hole in the budget because they don't like strings. What are the strings?
White bit back, pointing to the state increasing public funding through its new TISA model, but also saying public schools don't always perform to standard.
We just keep funding something decade after decade, whether it's functioning properly or not.
White also pointed out the federal Pell Grant, which goes to students going to college with financial need, can be used on both public and private universities. In Nashville, Chris O'Brien.
Tennessee Republican lawmakers say they want education funding with no strings attached and are looking at the feasibility of rejecting $2 billion in federal education dollars. News 2's Adam Mincer spoke with a mother who says the possibility has her very concerned.
It's a nearly $2 billion question. And Candace Ashburn, who has a child relying on public school special education programs, wants the answer.
How are we going to compensate for that funding if they take that funding away?
Today was the first meeting of the Joint Education Task Force, a group of state lawmakers who will report to the General Assembly on the, quote, feasibility of the state rejecting federal education funding and recommend a strategy on how to do so. This is how the group's co-chair started the meeting.
And I want to say in this memo, there is nothing that tasks this group with cutting $1 of education funding. And there is no precursor to the outcome of what this committee is going to do.
But the existence of the group itself worries Ashburn.
I want my federal tax dollars to stay here. I'm paying them. I don't want them to go somewhere else.
When asked whether this is all about skirting federal rules regarding transgender students or students who identify with the LGBTQ community, a Republican lawmaker who watched the meeting said no.
The curriculum and the standards are all done through the State Board of Education with the textbook commission, looking at the curriculum, making sure that it aligns to our standards. A lot of those things, those social issues that you're talking about, districts pass procedures or rules on their own districts.
According to the Comptroller Office's presentation, more than 11% of district revenue comes from federal funds, most of it going to support disadvantaged students, students with disabilities, and school lunches. Democrats say the consequences could be disastrous.
It's very fiscally irresponsible. It's policy malpractice, basically.
This is just the first in a series of meetings happening over the next 2 weeks. School district leaders, the U.S. Department of Education, and the Tennessee Department of Education will also speak to the 10-person panel.
At the state capitol, it's time again to set a budget. News 2's Chris O'Brien with a look at the next fiscal year as budget hearings begin.
The governor is in the midst of holding his annual budget hearings. It's not the most glamorous topic, but with some budget cuts expected, it's the last chance for departments to make their plea for more funding.
Our revenue is certainly not keeping up with inflation, and so we do have an issue.
Wednesday, Governor Bill Lee heard from the TBI, which is seeing a struggle with a backlog of digital forensics, investigations that deal with electronic data.
Currently, we have unacceptable turnaround times of a little over a year. Exact same problem that we had when we came to you about forensics.
TBI Director David Roush is referring to last year's budget hearing when slow sexual assault kit turnaround times were national news. Though the department did say it's cut down that time significantly after an infusion of money in last year's budget.
Our processing is down from the high of 42 weeks to we are now at 18 weeks. And we're well on our way to the goal of 12 or less.
And the TBI wasn't the only entity Lee heard from. The Department of Transportation also laid out its plan for the next fiscal year, which included its controversial toll lane concept, set to be in place by 2026.
We're going to be as aggressive as we can be and move as quickly as we can be.
But TDOT echoed concerns of many other departments and financial experts. Inflation is squeezing many of its ambitious plans.
We are seeing double-digit variances in the cost of materials that go into building a road. We're seeing increases in costs that we haven't seen, certainly in my career.
So how does that impact you? Well, it's very possible that road projects could be delayed, though the department says, at least at this point, they're not expecting or hoping for that. In Nashville, Chris O'Brien.
Now to our This Week cover story, the leaking of writings from the Covenant school shooter's so-called manifesto to a conservative radio host, and the fears the writings, if all are made public, could result in copycat killers.
Months after the Covenant school shooting, parents now outraged.
Oh, I've walked around all day like a gut punch.
The release comes amid an ongoing legal battle over whether the writing should be released to the public.
We don't want our children to someday read this stuff and whatever else may be there, because they're disconnected ramblings, but they are connected by one thing: they're evil.
Media loves to cover.
On Monday, the conservative host Steven Crowder posting online images claiming to be the writings of 28-year-old Audrey Hale. One page talks about, quote, Death Day, stating Hale was reportedly, quote, ready for the attacks. Another page referencing white privilege and using derogatory words about children. Then the last page showing a timeline for an attack. Crowder claims the photos were taken by a detective at the Covenant school.
When the issue at hand, as far as covering it now, is knowledge can be gleaned that can actually help people moving forward, avoid shootings like this.
As Covenant parents are condemning the release.
To the online shock jock who aired these images, I would challenge him, just be a human for once. Quit seeking clicks and retweets and platform building.
Then on Monday, Leatherwood was directly asked if he believes the leak came from a member of law enforcement.
The Hill was secured very quickly that day. I I believe that this is a member of the law enforcement community.
Metro Police tweeting in response to the leaks, stating they are in communication with the Metropolitan Department of Law, and the photographs are not MMPD crime scene images.
When you pass a squad car from Metro, it says that they are Nashville's guardians. And if this individual was a member of Metro, he has violated that pledge, violated it in the worst possible way.
Shooters behind tragedies in Parkland, Sandy Hook, and Virginia Tech were inspired by or researched the 1999 tragedy at Columbine High School before committing their own mass shootings. This, according to ABC News reports and law enforcement investigations. Now, experts like former FBI agent Dan Hodges are worried.
I don't see any good that can come from it.
The Covenant shooter's writings will also inspire future school shootings.
It could cause a copycat. We can't definitively say it would, but a lot of cases out there where people are mentally disturbed and they see something like that, that may be a good idea, you know.
Hodges has years of experience studying serial killers and says there's information to be learned from all the shooters' writings, but releasing them to the public isn't necessary.
The parents in the Covenant community, I mean, they don't need to go through this.
Republican lawmakers have continued to ask for the shooters' documents to be released, saying it'll help prevent future attacks.
We want to be able to look at the entire picture before we start trying to craft legislation in regards to what happened at Covenant so we can make a well-informed decision.
But Hodges says there are safer ways to learn than this.
Just to the lawmakers, they bring to a committee meeting one of the police officers or TBI agent or FBI agent that's reviewed this and ask them.